We have a number of topics to get to today, as once again, it's something we do twice weekly. It's our weekly sports talk. And first, we're going to start off with Charles Barkley. He had some interesting comments for Kyrie Irving. Marcus, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually read the comments first. I'm going to pull it up, and then we'll both give our take on it. This is what Charles Barkley said on the radio show earlier this week. He says, Charles Barkley on Kyrie Irving. He starts talking about what an artist is. You dribble a basketball. Stop acting like you're the smartest person in the world. You went to college for 6 months. A lot of guys are smarter than you. Shut the hell up and talk basketball. Whoa. Marcus, Charles had a lot to say about Kyrie, man. What are your thoughts on Charles's comments on Mr. Kyrie Irving?
Let me preface my comments by saying, first of all, when I hear Charles Barkley speak, I listen. He's one of those guys who just has a magnetic personality. He certainly isn't afraid to voice his opinion. He speaks his mind, which I can respect. I'm cut from the same cloth. But these comments, I got to be honest, they're akin to, or if I'm really being genuine, they're kind of akin to shut up and dribble. I'm not necessarily equating his comments to what Laura Ingraham said in reference to LeBron, but it's kind of cut from that same cloth. I disagree with him 100%. I don't understand, first of all, how going to college is a reference or correlation to someone being intelligent.
Not at all.
You said Kyrie only went to college for 6 months. Okay, cool. I know plenty of people who went to college for 4+ years.
Yes.
4 years to graduate, which is cool as long as you did it. But I know plenty of people who went to college for 4+ years, and they couldn't tell you what 2 + 2 or up versus down was. So I'm not sure exactly what he meant by that. I think he's frustrated because a lot of times when people hear Kyrie Irving talk, they don't understand what he's trying to say. And instead of saying, hey, look, I don't understand or I'm not following you, what they try to do is there's a character assassination. It's what's called an ad hominem attack. So as opposed to attacking what he's actually saying, they then turn to attack Kyrie Irving.
Yes, I mean, no, I totally agree with you, man. So with Kyrie, he's an interesting guy. Once again, I'm talking to Marcus Lamar from the Mark My Word podcast. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Like, share, subscribe. We're going to hit a number of sports topics this morning. Now, what I will say about Kyrie Irving, he is an interesting dude. Let's not act like he isn't. He's very interesting. And sometimes he says some things that can be considered controversial, or sometimes he can say some things that can be, taken out of context or for whatever reason. And then he does things like not talk to the media. So he can be unlikable at times. I'm not saying that he's unlikable. I like Kyrie Irving. I don't care what he does. But I can see why some people, you're on one side or the other with him. Charles Barkley, on the other hand, is, for one, he is no one to be calling nobody dumb. Like, let's be honest, man. Like, Charles made a living off the court being the gullible idiot, right? Like being the lovable, funny, idiot, right? Like, so for him to call somebody dumb is kind of ironic, right? And once again, going to college does not determine your intelligence. Like, we know that. Like, both of us went to college, and both of us, I'm sure, like you said, know people who went through college 4 years and as dumb as a box of rocks and graduated and everything. And then I know people who never stepped foot on campus that might be some of the smartest people I've ever met, right? So like that it does not equate to intelligence at all, like not one bit. So for him to tell Kyrie Irving to shut up and dribble, and that's basically what I titled this story, because that's what he did. I mean, and he literally says, shut up and talk basketball. Shut the hell up and talk basketball. Yep. Now, obviously, it wasn't in reference to the politics with Laura Ingraham attacking LeBron and Kevin Durant when they were hopping on Donald Trump and stuff. So it's not that deep, but it is shut the hell up and talk basketball. Like basketball players can have opinions. Well, I mean, what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, and honestly, what Kyrie said was, I think he was more so confused about why Kyrie was referring to himself as an artist, right? Yes. So he's saying, shut up and just talk basketball. And don't get me wrong, I would love to hear Kyrie Irving talk basketball. I think anytime you get a player of his caliber and you actually get them in an environment or in an arena where they can actually talk about game film or talk about what they were thinking on a specific play or when they took a certain shot, that is phenomenal content. But I'm also interested in what Kyrie Irving has to say. I'm also interested in what he has to contribute to the actual world. He's more than just an athlete. Like, he's an actual human. And basketball is an art form. So is podcasting. So is journalism. So is cooking. So is being a professional makeup artist. Like, there are different types of art forms that people indulge in or are participating on a daily basis. And Kyrie Irving happens to do what he does at the highest of levels. Yes. All right. 450 plus players in the NBA. Kyrie Irving's what? Maybe top 15 minimum. So anytime you're, I don't even know what percentile that is, but I can tell you it's a really good percentile to be in for someone in his profession.
Now, I will pull up this comment. It says, bro, Kyrie's tripping. He needs to talk basketball. This dude said they don't need a coach. Now, that goes to what I was saying earlier. Once again, I'm talking to Marcus Lamar from the Mark My Word podcast. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. We're talking basketball, football, all kinds of stuff today. But that goes into, that comment is because what a lot of people feel. Kyrie do be tripping sometimes, right? So when he said things like, oh, we don't need a coach, or, you know what I'm saying, well, sometimes I'll do this and KD will do that, or whatever. That plays into what I think Charles is saying in the grand scheme of things. I don't think Charles is just referring to the one incident where he called himself an artist. I think it's like overall, all of the things, the earth is flat, saying you don't need a coach, not talking to the media, not talking to the press when you're obligated to. All of that plays a factor into what Charles is saying. You know, whether that's right or not, I mean, you can't tell the man to shut the hell up and play basketball like that. That's not going to fly with no grown man. Let's be honest. Like, and Charles has had issues with other men simply because he tries to tell them what to do or tries to tell them how to talk. And, you know, him and Draymond had their back and forth. And Charles has had problems in his career. Like we saw it when he actually played, and especially since he's been a broadcaster. So he's run into these issues before. But it's definitely interesting to see this once again coming from a guy like Charles Barkley, who's a big personality, who is big opinionated, who isn't, you know, some would consider isn't very smart, to tell this man he ain't smart because he didn't go to college, shut the hell up and play basketball when all Charles do is talk, whether it's not always basketball. I've seen Charles Barkley on CNN. I've seen Charles Barkley on different like news outlets. Mm-hmm. So he's giving his opinion on different things, whether it's, you know, politics or, you know, his marriage or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we've seen this from Charles, and to hear him come at Kyrie like that, I mean, I find that kind of curious. Wouldn't you say? It's just kind of wild.
Let me respond to Carnell. First of all, when the 2017 Golden State Warriors featuring Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green actually came together, I was told that they didn't need a coach. I was told that anybody could coach the amount of talent that they've had assembled. Carnell said Kyrie needs to stop tripping and talk basketball. This dude said coach. When Kyrie talked basketball, when he was referring to, this is the first time in my career, whether we like, love, or hate the comment, that he looked down to the end of the bench and said, I have a bleeping who can hit the shot the same way I feel like I can hit the shot. He was talking basketball then, and people had an issue with it then. Now that he's, quote unquote, not talking basketball, people have an issue with him not talking basketball. We're at a stage in Kyrie Irving's professional career where anytime he opens his mouth or he espouses something, people are going to nitpick. They're going to find something wrong. I don't understand what Kyrie does. I don't care if he thinks the earth is flat, round, circular, up and down. I know that he's a phenomenal basketball player. He's an assassin on that court, and he scores the basketball for someone at his size like I've never seen in the history of the NBA. That's the only thing I know, and that's the only thing I care about. And the Nets are going to have a phenomenal season. Mark my word.
Let's talk about that, man, because I don't know. Because that's the thing. When Kyrie does talk basketball, it ain't always smart, Marcus. Like him saying LeBron wasn't clutch. Him saying LeBron wasn't clutch, and the first time he can look down the side of his bench and see a guy who can make a shot, that ain't true. Like, well, let's not skip over what you just said, because you're saying we're nitpicking what Kyrie says. And some of that is true, right? Like certain guys get certain treatment. And so when you come off a certain way, whether it's towards media, whether it's towards referees in the game, whether it's out in public, like James Harden, he can't get over the stigma that he goes to the strip club and lets it rain, right? Like he'll never live that down. He could have 10 kids and married a wife for 30 years. People will never forget that he used to make it rain in Houston and Vegas and all these different places like that. But that's what comes with being James Harden. What comes with being LeBron James is they nitpick every little thing, whether you Skip Bayless or any other guy on TV. They try to, you know, nitpick you and put you in a box. But with Kyrie Irving, when you say things like the earth is flat and you come out and make dumbass statements, like just call it what it is. That was dumb. To sit there and say you ain't never played with a guy who can make a shot in clutch moments, you're not being truthful, Marcus. Come on. You know the man wasn't being truthful. Like please tell me you knew he wasn't being truthful.
Hold on. I can understand what he was saying, and I understand why people, and there's no bigger supporter of LeBron James than the man you're looking at, okay? I can understand why people that support LeBron feel slighted and had an issue with his remarks. But if we're being honest, LeBron James is not a jump shooter. His game is predicated on athleticism. Okay. Kevin Durant is what you would call a marksman. outside of Dirk Nowitzki and maybe Larry Bird, we've never seen someone the size of Kevin Durant who could pull up from 30. Like literally pull up from 30. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Kevin Durant's actual jump shot blocked. I'm not talking about help side block. I'm not talking about block from the side or block from behind. I'm talking about someone who rises up with Kevin Durant to actually block his shot. It's a rare occurrence. Kevin Durant is special. He is a special scorer and a special shooter. So I can understand what Kyrie said when he said, this is the first time where I'm looking down at the end of the bench and I trust somebody shooting the basketball. I understand all LeBron James statistics about clutch moments and clutch performers, but anyone who watches the game of basketball would not confuse LeBron James with being a great shooter from the field. Like Ben Simmons shot 57% from the field. Keyword shot. But we all know damn well he wasn't taking jump shots. He was scoring in the paint, but it's still considered his field goal percentage.
Okay. I'll let you slide with that one. I'll let you, because we can get into that all day. I'll let you slide with that one because LeBron isn't considered a shooter, but in clutch performance, once again, like we're talking about being clutch. We ain't just talking about shooting throughout the duality of the game. We're talking about when it matters most, who comes up. And I'm always take the guy that's been in the finals 10 times. And since he's been in the playoffs, like he's made the finals, 9 consecutive times since the 1 year they missed the playoffs because, he was hurt or whatever. But every year that he's made the playoffs over the last 9 trips to the playoffs, that man has finished in the finals. And I'm always call that man clutch. We got some more comments, man, because I do want to get to this one because this one's pretty interesting too. It says Kyrie didn't hurt LeBron's feelings. He hurt the media's feelings, especially Stephen A. Snitch. Ooh, man. They just mad because they said black players need to stay their own league. What are your thoughts on that? Because Kyrie did take some heat when he said black players need to create their own league, and a lot of people didn't agree with that. I was one that was behind Kyrie Irving but I didn't like the way Kyrie Irving went about it, right? Kyrie Irving came out, and it just we're getting sidetracked with this, but I do like these comments, and I do like answering some of these questions. I believe the reason why people spun what Kyrie said or wasn't feeling what he was saying is it's a lot to do with the media always, but it's because Kyrie was all aboard about playing, and then when they told him he couldn't come to the bubble, it seemed like then it was like maybe none of us should go to the bubble. Maybe we should start our own league. What do you say, Marcus?
Let's be honest, Jeff. We're both black, right? Shocker.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. B1. Put the hashtag B1 in the chat, y'all, because y'all know we B1 over here.
So Jeff and I are both African American, and behind closed doors and sometimes in public, what is the gripe that we have as it pertains to our community? It's a key word called ownership.
Ownership. Yes, sir.
Our people continue to run into roadblocks is because we don't own anything. Like the NBA and NFL are predominantly African American. So is the entertainment industry as it pertains to rap or the music industry. But we're not executives or heads of companies or owners of these franchises. So we keep running into the same problems because we don't have ownership. Diddy, when the Carolina Panthers were up for sale, Diddy was like, hey, I'm interested in buying it. But he's like, why don't we get a bunch of people that are like-minded, that look like me, that have resources like me to pull those resources together to see if we can create our own. That has always been a conversation that we've had. So for Kyrie Irving to suggest it publicly, for anybody to have an issue with that, who considers themselves to be African-American, you're being disingenuous because this is not a foreign topic. This is not a foreign conversation. Now, you might disagree, like you stated eloquently, about how Kyrie Irving went about going about that method.
Yes.
But again, at this point, Kyrie Irving is in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Anything he says or does moving forward will be criticized or scrutinized heavily. I don't think he gets a fair shake in the media. For people to just sit there and say that him and Kevin Durant are aloof or they're not intelligent is ridiculous. All right, it really is. I'm never going to acquiesce or to basically categorize Kyrie Irving as not being intelligent, especially when I've never sat down with the brother, had a conversation with him, or just because his views don't align with society at large. I'm never going to do that.
No, that's just true. I feel you, man. I'm right there with you because, like you said, anytime we try to put down our own people, especially in a case like this, because the thing is, like, let's be real with it, Marcus. We black. You said it. We both black. If this was a white man, a white hooper, a white basketball player, would Charles Barkley have made these same comments? Like, do we think he would have came at I couldn't even think Luka Doncic like that, right? Like, do you think it would have came at some of these other guys, Kristaps Porzingis or whoever, right? Like, would he have told them to shut up and dribble simply because they said basketball is an art form, which it is. Like, it is an art form. It's a sport, so it is an art form. Just because Kyrie has said some weird stuff in the past, I'm not gonna act like he hasn't, right? But to just sit there and denigrate him and tell the man he ain't smart because he ain't go to college. It's just stupid to knock the man because he said basketball is an art form, which it is. Like that is just plain dumb. Like we're not gonna sugarcoat it. We don't sugarcoat here on the Black Boss channel. I'm sure we don't sugarcoat on the Mark My Word podcast. We are not. That's just dumb. That's just it is what it is. Now let's move on for a little bit because it's been a fun topic talking about Kyrie. We can talk about Kyrie all day, but there's another man that I mentioned earlier. And that's Mr. James Harden. Mr. Make It Rain in the strip clubs, Mr. Skip training practice to go out to Vegas and hang out with little baby. There is Mr. Come to the game and look like the Michelin man, James 4PF Harden, man. What are your thoughts on what's taking place with James Harden and the Houston Rockets?
Well, someone needs to answer up because the picture that I saw of James Harden in practice was a slimmer James Harden. So for him to all of a sudden be shown on TV as if he had gained 30 pounds in a night, someone had some explaining to do, but that's neither here nor there. Let me start my comments by saying I don't have a problem with James Harden's lifestyle off of the basketball court.
Not at all.
Here's what runs into the issue. The issue is not the clubbing. The issue is the lack of postseason performances. Because James Harden, as an owner, I read Tim McMahon of ESPN's phenomenal article. It's a 9-minute read. I read every single word of his article. He said that an owner went on the record and basically said, James Harden will go clubbing the night before, but he'll come out and get you a 50-point triple-double the next night. So it's kind of one of those things where it's, he's partying, but he's producing. This is where James Harden runs into a problem because when it comes to the postseason, James Harden is a lesser version of himself. If you look at his career, look at his numbers, juxtapose them from the regular season to the postseason, his numbers drop precipitously across the board. Points, rebounds, assists, three-point percentage, field goal percentage, efficiency. That is really what the issue is. James Harden is not a reliable clutch postseason performer, which is why despite the fact that his team made it to 2 Western Conference Finals, and they've had a phenomenal 8-year stretch in which, outside of the Golden State Warriors, who was the second best team in the Western Conference these 8 years? It was the Rockets. And that's in large part because of the 3 people, 2 of them are no longer there, Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni, and James Harden. He has elevated that franchise to relevance and significance since coming in Steve Francis. Period. Point.
Yes. So Mr. 4PF Harden, man, but man, if you can go out and go to King of Diamonds on Tuesday and go hoop on Wednesday and drop 50-point triple doubles, you get a round of applause for me. I ain't gonna act like that ain't impressive. Like think about the way players like Kobe Bryant and all of these other guys really just trained and put their all into basketball to do what they did. And then there's guys like James Harden who can go out and throw 50,000 at the club in Vegas. And then take the private jet, fly back into Houston, and go drop 60 on your head like it was nothing. Tequila soaked, cognac soaked James Harden, 4PF throwing it up with little baby and stuff. Like I think that's impressive. Now, as far as culture and leadership, I don't know if that, if that is something that's gonna translate, right? Like when you're doing these type of things, I don't know how much of a leader your teammates are gonna, or how much reliability you're gonna be put on, or how much the franchise is gonna trust you, right? Or how far you can advance. But at the same time, I think that James Harden, to me, and that's the thing, the postseason success is the truth. Like what James Harden, his lack of postseason success is true. But what I will say, James Harden and the Houston Rockets, I think they maximized their talent every time. Like this was the best that they could have done. Like the Western Conference Finals with Chris Paul, the disaster that everybody knew Russell Westbrook was going to be. Like we all knew that was going to be a disaster if you know anything about basketball. And then then obviously we knew Dwight Howard wasn't the same by the time he got to Houston. So like what he accomplished in Houston, albeit not as much as they expected or they hoped for at this point, but he did, I think, the best that he could have done. What do you say to that? Well, once again, I'm talking to Marcus Lamar from the Mark My Word podcast. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. But do you think James Harden And he's still a member of the Houston Rockets. He hasn't gotten traded or anything, but the thing is, he's probably will be soon enough, sooner than later. But do you think he accomplished everything he possibly could have as a member of the Houston Rockets?
Let's see. Year in, year out, James Harden was at minimum top 3 in the MVP discussion. If he was winning the award, he was either the runner-up or he was top 3. So that's impressive. He's won the last 3 scoring titles, right? Yes. He made it to 2 Western Conference Finals and have made the playoffs every single season he's been in Houston. As much as people like myself malign Mike D'Antoni and Daryl Morey and James Harden for their style of play is ultimately what gave them the best chance to dethrone the Warriors in the Western Conference. Let's be honest. The Houston Rockets window was closed shut once they blew a 3-2 lead in the Western Conference Finals in 2018 when Chris Paul went out in Game 6. And I don't want to hear that Chris Paul's injury was what changed the series. Yes, it changed the series, but let me remind you all what took place in Game 7. The Houston Rockets were up by 15 points, albeit in the first half, against the Golden State Warriors. In the second half, or in the game as a whole, there was a stretch in that basketball game where Houston was 1 of 30 from 3 and missed 27 consecutive three-pointers. Let that sink in. They missed 27 consecutive three-pointers and were 1 of 30 from three-point range, ultimately finishing the game 7 of 44 from three-point range. And albeit, even though that happened, they still lost the game by less than double digits. So Houston absolutely maxed their potential in James Harden's run. I'm here to tell you he's going to be traded. It's not a matter of is he going to be traded? It's a matter of when. The situation is untenable in Houston. He does not want to be there. They do not want him there. I just don't think that he's going to end up someplace that he actually wants. If I was Houston, I would try to get him to Philly, right? If I know Harden has said that he's interested in playing, he's not going to Brooklyn. So we can kill that pipe dream. We need to knock it off. He's not going to Brooklyn. Is an option for him. I just personally would not trade Ben Simmons and 3 first-round draft picks for James Harden at this stage in his career. James Harden is an elite player. He's top 10, top 7, but he's not leading your team to a championship. He has not demonstrated that he can be the best player on a championship team.
Oh, so we got Cardell saying that basically Harden is accomplished, but it was the style of play that, basically the coaching is the reason why they never accomplished things in Houston. I will say, as far as the coaching, D'Antoni, we know D'Antoni's teams don't typically play defense. We know D'Antoni's teams just struggle on that side of the ball. We know that D'Antoni's teams amplify the guard play. So we see James Harden with these astronomical numbers especially over the last 5 years, but throughout the duration of his career in Houston. So I will say that is interesting. You say you don't think he ends up in Brooklyn. It's kind of looking that way. It's kind of looking like he won't end up there because just for whatever reason, all the stuff that was going on, first he was hell-bent on going to Brooklyn, but the fact that he has 3 years left on his deal is going to kind of keep that from happening simply because Brooklyn doesn't look like they want to part with Kyrie. And if I'm Houston, ain't no way in hell I'm giving you James Harden for Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, and a couple first-round picks. Like, no. But you say you wouldn't trade Ben Simmons for James Harden. Why? Why would you not let go of Ben Simmons' non-shooting self to bring in one of the best scorers in the league? Because I don't know. I think I would. I think if I could get James Harden on my team, now the 3 first-round picks might be insane, but 3rd first-round picks, especially at the back half of the draft in the NBA, don't always matter. But if I could get straight up James Harden for Ben Simmons and maybe 1 first-rounder, hell, maybe even 2, I think I might pull that trigger if I'm Philly. What do you say?
Let's be clear. I'm not one of those people who believes in hoarding draft picks. All right, a lot of people like, you can't get rid of. First of all, those players aren't even in the league, and the odds of them being better than James Harden are slim to none. All right?
It's none. It's none. Let's not say slim. It's just none.
And let me say this too. In the short term, I think Embiid and Harden work better than Simmons and Embiid do. Simmons and Embiid's games don't complement each other. They're not a duo. Just because you have the 2 best players on a team does not make them a duo. What makes a duo is how they feed off of each other, how they play off of one another. Simmons needs to have his own team, something akin to what Giannis has. A team where he is the majority, he's the predominant scorer, a team where he can facilitate, rebound, and control the offense, and you surround him with shooters and complementary pieces. Embiid also needs to be on his team. Harden has demonstrated an ability to carry a team during the regular season, and Embiid has demonstrated that I don't have any trust in his diet or his body to hold up, so the pairing could work. But if we're talking long-term, Ben Simmons, in my eyes, is a top 20 player. He's a better defender than James Harden, He's a better defender than James Harden. All right. In terms of facilitating or running an offense, if you want to say they're equal, that's fine. But it's not like Harden's better than him at that. And in terms of rebounding the basketball, I think Ben Simmons is better because he's taller. Like it just is what it is. Like Ben Simmons has the potential to average a triple-double on a nightly basis. So I'm not, and I get why Houston's asking for a king's ransom. They're trying to bankrupt or gut whatever team trades they do business with, but I personally wouldn't do it.
Yeah, you got to. Like you said, if you're trading away, I remember the famous Jerry Buss quote when Kobe asked for a trade way back in the day. He was like, Kobe, you're a 5-carat diamond. I can't trade you a 5-carat diamond for 5 1-carat diamonds. That's not how it works. Like, so if I'm trading away my biggest asset, my best player, what's making my franchise, if it's worth $1 billion, I put this guy on the team, it's now double or worth 1 or 3 times. Like, no, I need to get something maybe not equal in value, but damn sure close, right? Like a 4.5 carat or a 4 carat if I'm trying to weigh a 4-carat diamond in draft luxury and some picks. So like that, all of that goes into play when we're talking about trading away a guy like James Harden, a guy of his caliber. Once again, I'm talking to Marcus Lamar from the Mark My Word podcast. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. Marcus, we're going to continue to move on. This time, we're going to talk a little bit of college football. We're going to talk about Deion Primetime Sanders and what he is doing at Jackson State, the HBCU down in Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi. Marcus, you are an HBCU alum. Just kind of talk to me about what Prime is doing down at Jackson State.
So I want to give him credit. I think what he's doing is phenomenal. And a lot of times this is what it takes. It takes someone to deviate from the norm and to kind of establish a different trend or a different pattern. I always, as it pertains to this subject, I always have this question or pose this question. Is it the chicken or the egg? Which one comes first? Are these elite college programs or collegiate programs the way they are because they get the players that they get, or are the players that they get going to these colleges because of the way they are, right? So we all know if you play at in the MEAC conference, or if you are considered a D3 athlete, you're looked at as inferior in terms of your athletic ability. Like, you're looked at as not playing real competition. But what Deion Sanders is doing is, because he's a high-profile name, he actually can get in what's called the living room. He can get in the living room with these families and have conversations that otherwise we haven't been able to have. And he's able to convince these players, like, hey, look, I understand this is what you want for your future. I understand that a lot of times going to the HBCU, even though there is a lot of HBCU representation in the NFL, let's not get it twisted. But the norm is, if you want to make it to the NFL, if you want to be a shoo-in, what's called a shoo-in for the NFL, you need to go to a powerhouse school, right? You need to go to the SEC conference or the Big 12, whatever it is. That's been the norm. That's what's been perpetuated throughout the entirety of a lot of these athletes' careers. Deion Sanders is what's called a disruptor. He's like what Uber and Lyft were to the taxi industry. Yes. I hope that he can continue this trend. I think he's off to a great start. If we can get more people to buy into the belief that just because you attend an HBCU doesn't mean that you don't have a chance to make it to the NFL. Because if you're a baller, if you're good at anything in life that you do, somebody is going to discover you.
Yes. Yes, you're going to make it happen. No, you're definitely going to make it happen. And what I love about Prime is that he is not being shy about what he is doing. He is letting you know on his podcast. He's letting you know on Instagram. He's letting you know through Barstool Sports. He's letting you know through Twitter, like all of that. Prime is letting you know, hey, I'm taking these guys. I'm taking them from Florida. I'm taking them from Georgia. I'm taking them from Mississippi State, USC, like he's the Missouri. All of these guys either transferred from these schools, had offers from these schools, and committed to Jackson State. And that is impressive to me. And what's ultimately going to determine whether he's able to keep this trend, because the initial recruiting class isn't coming to Jackson State because of the history of Jackson State. I mean, let's just be honest. Even though Jackson State has a wonderful, like, historic presence in the NFL, 99 draft picks, they've had 4 Hall of Famers. Like, Jackson State has a hell of a history with football. But that's not why these kids are coming, because the last dude to get drafted at Jackson State was almost 20 years ago. And the Hall of Famers were inducted over 30 years ago, right? Like that. And these kids are between 18 and 24 in most cases, or 23 or whatever. They're coming because of the hype and because of Deion. What's ultimately going to determine whether he is able to keep this trend is the product on the field. And let's be honest, Deion Sanders hasn't been a head coach at the college level ever. He's never been a head coach of a football team ever. Like, he was the offensive coordinator at his son's high school, and they won a lot, but they played in a weaker league. Let's just be honest, for those who keep up with it, it was a weaker league down in Texas, a private school league. And now this was his first head coaching job at any level. So what's going to determine whether he keeps these high-level recruits coming in is the product on the field and the productivity at the next level, or the chance to get to the next level. If he throws out a couple draft picks, whether it's second round, third round, hell, if he gets a first-round pick out of Jackson State in the next year or two, man, that is going to be some stuff, and we could ultimately see a power shift. See, what happened, what took place during 2020 was a lot of bad stuff, right? Like, let's not focus on the bad, because we're B1, we're black first. And what happened is a lot of people's eyes, black people's eyes, woke up, and they were like, man, I have faith in myself to be better than what I thought I could ever become. Like, a lot of black people didn't have confidence in themselves for whatever reason, because of their background, because of the history, because of their family history, whatever. But now they are seeing that they can do and become whatever the hell they want, whether they want to start a business, become a big time athlete, become whatever in the world. And so I call it the Black Awakening. And what Deion Sanders is doing at Jackson State only helps elevate these things. I think it started with McCormaker choosing Howard over Kentucky and Memphis and UCLA, like down in college basketball. Now what Deion is doing at the college football level, pulling guys from big time, not just Power 5, but SEC schools, what's considered the best football conference. And these guys have a legit chance to get to the next level. I think that is a beautiful thing. What say you, Marcus?
I agree. Like you said, ultimately the on-field product is what's going to determine whether people want to go there, right? So it boils down to wins and losses. Like, sports has a short menu. It's wins and losses. Are you victorious or are you not? I think if a lot of players had the mentality where, hey, if I commit to this program, if I commit to what they're doing, I could help contribute to those wins, that I'm skeptical, is this program going to take off? If 4 elite recruits said, we're going to Jackson State, they would be a powerhouse. Like, especially if you get them at the right positions, like quarterback, wide receiver, cornerback, running back,
lineman or something.
They would be an elite program, and that's how you get more eyeballs on the product. Like, I think this is the start of something. I hope that it continues. And even though Prime has never coached at any level, smart people are smart because they surround themselves with other smart people.
Definitely.
Right? So if you're a head coach, your job should really be to delegate responsibility. So you get an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, a special teams coach that you trust, and you let them do the quote unquote gritty work, and you sit back and delegate. Not saying you don't do anything, obviously, but Prime is doing what he was brought there to do, which is to recruit. His name is supposed to get him in living rooms that Jackson State otherwise wouldn't have been able to enter into.
That's very true. Now, I think also, if you see Prime recruiting at a high level, that only helps everybody. Everybody in the SWAC conference, everybody at HBCUs, because now other kids, even if they don't choose Jackson State, they might choose, to go to Mississippi Valley State. They might choose to go to Grambling. They might choose to go to Alcorn. All these different schools, I think everybody will benefit because they all play each other. So if I maybe I don't want to go play for Coach Prime, but maybe I want to go beat Coach Prime's team. Like, man, damn, they loading up over at Jackson State. Let me head down to Alcorn and make something happen. You know what I'm saying? Like it's only going to help everyone in the grand scheme of things. And most of these HBCUs, now obviously you got ones like Delaware State and a lot of them up in the Northeast, but most of them are right there in the South. And right there in the South is where all the best recruits are. Like, we talking about Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, like Georgia, Texas, like all of 90% of the HBCUs are right in that area. And so those are where it's a hotbed of recruits can come and play for those different programs. I'm excited to see it happen. Once again, I'm talking to Marcus Lamar from the Mark My Word podcast. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, because we are covering a number of topics, and we'll get to this one. Let's jump back to the NBA. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he signed this 5-year, $228 million to stay in Milwaukee. Marcus, what were your first thoughts when you saw Giannis re-sign with the Bucks?
I was shocked. I thought Giannis was as good as out of there, man. I thought that his reluctance to comment on the situation was an indicator that he was going to play out the life of his contract. And once his contract was over at the end of this upcoming season, he was going to say, I've done everything I could for the city. I've won 2 MVPs. I've got the Milwaukee Bucks back on the map. I'm taking my talents elsewhere, literally and figuratively, something akin to LeBron James. And for all those people that are down on Giannis, he literally is at the same exact stage LeBron was in the first 7 years of his career. He's won an MVP award multiple times. He's come up short in the playoffs, and he's still chasing that elusive first championship. Now, two things can be true. Do I think Giannis will win a championship with the Milwaukee Bucks? No, that is not on him as a player. I don't think he's going to get the superstar needed, right? Or even if he's not playing with the superstar, he needs to be playing with a Robin who has the ability to play like a superstar. Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday at their best cannot be the second best players on a championship team. But Giannis doesn't necessarily have to go his entire career without winning a championship. He's in line to get another max deal at 30, presuming he's not traded before this new contract expires. 30. That's still prime years, which means he'll still have about 3 to 4 more years of his prime to go to another team, to link up with whoever he chooses to at that time to win a championship. And all he has to do is just win one. I know a lot of times we put pressure on these athletes like LeBron and Kobe and Shaq and Tim Duncan to win multiple, but Dirk Nowitzki's finished his career with one championship. And there are some people foolishly who think that his one championship means more than Kevin Durant's two. But that's another day.
I might be one of those foolish people. I don't know. I might be one of those foolish people. I don't know. Because I think Dirk win in 2011 was better than Kevin Durant's 2 in Golden State when you joined a 73-19. But that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about the freak and the fact that he got the bag. The Greek freak got the bag. But somebody on here, Mr. Sound, he said freak ain't worth that. He said Greek freak ain't worth the 228 that they gave him in Milwaukee. Sir, I'm about to address what you just said. There is no way in hell that the Greek freak wasn't worth his 228 he got in Milwaukee. Let's be honest, man. There was no other direction Milwaukee could go. You got the 2-time league reigning MVP. He's won the last 2 MVPs. He had the highest PER in the history of the NBA. That includes Michael Jordan. That includes Kobe Bryant. That includes LeBron James, Magic Johnson, Anthony Davis, all these other guys. That statistic includes all of them. He had the highest PER in the history of the league. He also won Defensive Player of the Year. So, like, let's not act like the man didn't deserve the 228. He did deserve it. Now, there's just some of those other points that you said. Will he win a championship in Milwaukee? Absolutely not. Milwaukee is not built to win a championship. When your guy, here's the thing. The NBA now is dominated by wings. Can we say that? Wings run the league. Guys that can handle and shoot. If you can't do that, if your lead guy in 2020 can't handle and shoot, it's hard to win a championship. And that is why the Lakers are so successful, because LeBron James, albeit we called him he wasn't a shooter, the man can still shoot shot to over 35% last year from 3. We know he got a crazy handle, led the league in assists, and he's LeBron James. The other great teams, Kevin Durant, handle and shoot. Kyrie Irving on the Brooklyn Nets, handle and shoot. Steph, handle and shoot. Kawhi Leonard, maybe not to the extent of some of those guys, but he can handle, he can shoot, he can get you a bucket. So that is what you need in the league. Greek freak don't do that. He doesn't handle that great. He damn sure don't shoot. So it's like when that's your lead guy, it's tough to win playoff basketball games. Not to say you can't win a bunch of regular season basketball games.
All right.
You can win a whole bunch, and Milwaukee has proven that they can win a whole bunch of regular season basketball games. Hell, so many that they have the reigning 2-time league MVP. But when playoff basketball comes, this is not the same team. And particularly, and this is the reason why I think Greek Freak re-signed. It's not just because they're not the same team. He's not the same player in the playoffs. The same crap we're going to give James Harden, we got to give it to Giannis. Giannis got to get that same because Giannis is more accomplished than James. Giannis is considered a better player than James. So if we're going to knock James Harden for his playoff success or lack thereof, a playoff success, then we got to knock Giannis. And that is why I think he resigned, because it's not just that his team falls and flakes in the playoffs. It's because Giannis's performances fall and flake in the playoffs, whether it was to the Heat this past year, whether it was getting locked down by Kawhi the year before, or whether it was just not having the playoff. They haven't even been to the finals yet. And this man, like I just said, had the highest PER in the league history. He is a 2-time reigning defending league MVP. He won Defensive Player of the Year and MVP in the same season. The only other players is Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon. And guess what those guys got? They got rings. They got rings. And Giannis don't got one. And Giannis' team didn't even make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, let alone the finals yet. So that's a big reason why I think he re-signed with the Bucks. What say you?
I want to get back to Sound Man because and Sound Man, I appreciate you sounding off, pun intended, in the comment section. But for him to fix his lips or to fix his fingers and say Greek freak ain't worth that, when Paul George, aka George Paul, just got, how much did George Paul just get paid?
Ooh, we got 190 over 4 years. He got 190 over 4 years.
Like a lot of times when people think, or first of all, athletes as a whole are underpaid. All right, because for what?
Oh, that's a different debate. Because I get a lot of comments. Why are we talking about athletes? They make so much money, they're not even worth it. But you're saying they're underpaid. But we can get to that later. But keep going.
They're underpaid. So for everyone out there who's saying, oh, well, so are teachers, so are police officers, so are firefighters. Here's the reality. I have a bunch of respect and admiration for all those professions, but no one's paying to see any of those people do their jobs. We are an entertainment-driven society. Yes. People pay to see basketball. People pay to see LeBron dunk, and they pay to see Steph Curry dribble the basketball, and they pay to see Nicki Minaj rap. It is what it is. If you understand that and you want to make what they make, then go into those professions. It's that simple. So back to Giannis. Giannis, for what he does for the Milwaukee Bucks organization, in terms of the revenue he brings in, what he does for that region and that economy, he's getting what? He's getting $228 million over 5 years. What does that come out to? Like $45 million a year?
45 a year. Yes, sir.
Does anyone in their right mind think that he's bringing in less or more than that to that region or to that organization? I mean, come on. This is a player who just won the MVP award in consecutive seasons. I think some people are forgetting. The only players that have done this, I believe, is 10 in NBA history. Jordan did it. LeBron did it. Curry did it. Larry Bird did it. Like, this is elite company that he just joined. Does he have deficiencies in his game? Absolutely. And that's why I think he needs to be paired with another superstar. His inability to shoot the basketball consistently, where a defense has to respect his jump shot, is a problem, right? But he can rebound the basketball. He's an underrated passer, in my opinion, and he's a defender. I'll make this case. There's nobody in the NBA, to include LeBron James, who's better over the course of 82 games than Giannis. Where he falls short is that when it's money time, which is the postseason, what teams do is if you have an adequate wing defender like a Kawhi or a KD or LeBron or a Jimmy Butler, and you have rim protection, because that's the missing component that people leave out. You need to have somebody back there, whether it's a JaVale McGee or a Dwight Howard or a Serge Ibaka or Marc Gasol, to anchor the defense in the middle while you have someone funneling him on the perimeter. That's the key to stopping Giannis. He needs to overcome that. Will he? I don't know. But to say he's never going to finish his career with the chip is ridiculous, considering he's only 25 years old.
Yeah, no. Giannis has a lot of basketball left on his legs, or at least we think so. Knock on wood, hopefully everything stays good. But where there's been other players that we thought, we're gonna have a good chance well into their 30s, and then life happens, right? Like, life happens, and that is part of the game, man. This has been crazy, man. Like, we've had some crazy stuff take place throughout the history of basketball. And like you say, Giannis is in rare air when you line up his accomplishments. Like, at age 25, to accomplish as much as he has, it is rare air. Like, there's not a lot of people that can say and do what Giannis has done. I want to touch on what you said really quick. You said athletes are underpaid. I get told all of the time, and I don't know, I get comments all the time that say, man, why are you always talking about numbers and figures, man? Whether it was the Paul George contract or LeBron James' new deal or Anthony Davis' new deal or Giannis' new deal. I get told, like, man, these athletes are overpaid. Like, they don't deserve that money that they get. We paying all these athletes all this bread. You said that's baloney. That's fish. Get out of here. Why do you say that, Mr. Marcus Lamar, that athletes are actually underpaid? Which I agree with.
Because here's the deal. What's operating at hand is a lot of times when people lament the status of affairs as it pertains to what athletes are paid, there's some envy and jealousy there. Like, it is what it is. Now, do people think it's absurd for someone to be paid an exorbitant amount of money to quote unquote entertain? Because that's what you hear. These are the narratives that are out there. Well, they're just there for our entertainment, right? They're just there for our entertainment. So why are we giving, like, I think, and I hate when ESPN or even some of these companies release like how much someone is making per game, per hour, per second,
minute, per they just did that with Giannis, by the way. I literally just saw that.
what it does is it breeds resentment on people like myself and you, who I guess would be considered the working class or lower middle class, however you want to phrase it, because we're not making that. But like I said, they're allowed to get paid that much because someone's willing to, and because we are an entertainment driven society. We can't help ourselves. We prioritize entertainment here. I know for a fact I do. I love sports. Sports is like the center of my universe. So by and large, if you're telling me that teachers are underpaid, which I agree with, two things can be true. I can say teachers are underpaid, but I can also say that athletes are underpaid as well, because they're settling for a piece of the pie, especially when you're talking about someone like LeBron James, who's a constant talking point on TV shows, which is driving in ratings, who has been the biggest star, whether it's selling jerseys, whether it's ratings in the NBA for the better part of the last decade. LeBron is actually underpaid. The fact that the NBA is allowed to use his voice, his name, and his likeness all over the place, the fact that they're able to ask him to be a part of certain initiatives or to be the face of their league, they've capitalized off of LeBron way more than LeBron's capitalized off of them. Now, give and take is somewhat of a two-way street, but to say athletes, now if you tell me people like Chris Middleton shouldn't be making max money, then okay, cool. But you are worth what someone's willing to pay you.
Exactly. You worth what you can negotiate. And shout out Chris Middleton agent. Shout out Tobias Harris agent. Like those guys is getting bread. And it's players all over the football field that do the same thing. What was you saying?
I said Gordon Hayward. I'm not saying Gordon Hayward keeps getting max contract. Him, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James are the only players that make $30 million in multiple styles, which is when I found that out, I almost flipped. But shout out to his agent.
Shout out to most of y'all's GOAT. They gave him $30 million a year to go be average 15 points a game. Yeah, I'm talking about Michael Jordan. Yep. Most of the folks out there is GOAT. Y'all GOAT gave this man $30 million a year, and that man gonna average you a smooth 15 points per game, and you got to pay him $30 million over the next 4 years. So that is what it is. But that is crazy to think about that. All of that stuff is taking place in the NBA. Marcus, before we get out of here.
Yes, sir.
Before we get out of here, I have to, because the NBA season starts in literally 4 days. I don't think we will be on again before the start of the season. Okay. I just want to hear. I'm not going to tell you to give me. I'm not going to tell you to give me a prediction, or no. We'll actually be on again, so we'll hold off. But we will say some parting words before, and we'll get some more predictions on Monday. Because once again, talking to Marcus Lamar from the Mark My Word podcast every Monday and Friday, we come here and we rap about sports around noon Eastern. So before Monday, I just want to get just throughout the preseason, what are some of the things you're looking forward to in this upcoming NBA season? Go for it.
All right, so I'll give you 3 things off the top of my head. I'm obviously looking to see how Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving do in Brooklyn. That's like a given, right? I'm looking to see how that happens. I'm really interested in seeing James Harden lands, but I'm also excited to see Steph Curry back, man. I think people forget because we haven't seen Steph Curry on a basketball court consistently for the last year and a half, maybe. Steph Curry, when last seen, was considered a top 5 player. Like he had a brief moment, and I'm not gonna lie, I drank the Kool-Aid. He had a brief moment where he had me thinking he was actually the best player in basketball. Like it was for like an hour. I know it wasn't one of my finals.
No way. I can't.
But he was like, because he was doing video game things, and that's when the era of 2K was really, 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 really popular. And I was like, whoa, this guy is 6.
He's a hooper on 2K now. Yeah, he'll let you up on 2K now. I don't play it, but my brother does, and he lets me know plenty.
But yeah, when Brown blocked him in the playoffs and looked at him like, that's when I snapped out of it.
It looked at him like little boy.
Right, I snapped out of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing those 3 things. As a side note, the Clippers, they're in the news. They're being investigated, which the investigation to me is much about nothing. We can get into that another day. Yeah. But I want to see how Kawhi handles pressure. Kawhi just blew a 3-1 lead. He was the leader or the best player on the team that blew a 3-1 lead, something that Kevin Durant and Steph Curry have both done. He was dragged through the media for all of an hour, and that's the problem I have with Kawhi. But I want to see how the Clippers respond with Ty Lue up in there, see if they can make some adjustments with George Paul riding shotgun.
Yeah, there ain't much. Clippers ain't scaring nobody now. We know that they're all front runners and frauds. The thing about Kawhi Leonard that he escapes media because he doesn't talk, right? Like he doesn't talk. I think he has a family, but his family isn't out there, right? Like Steph's wife it does a lot of appearances and has cooking shows, and as well as a public figure. Like people know Steph's wife. LeBron's family doesn't talk, but LeBron talks a lot, right? Yeah. And then he has a superstar son that is really good at basketball. So LeBron's always good, and he's the face of the league. So it's hard to avoid the media when you're the face of the league. And then all these other guys kind of show up and talk and do different media appearances and all that. So that's why whether it's Paul George or whoever, Kyrie Irving, like they get criticized or whatever a decent amount, way more than like a Kawhi Leonard would, simply because they're more visible. Kawhi Leonard is invisible. Hell, he don't even live in LA. He lives in San Diego. He flies in LA. You know what I'm saying? So that's why he's able to avoid that. But they are, to me, besides Brooklyn, because I think Brooklyn's the obvious choice. But besides Brooklyn, I think the Clippers are the story, right? They didn't change much. They lost Montrez, but they just moved Ty Lue from chair 2 to chair 1, got rid of Doc, and they just running it back. I mean, it's essentially now brought in Serge Ibaka, which I think was a solid pickup. But they didn't really do much. So, but I'm interested to see, like, they make it seem like they beat themselves in the playoffs, which might be true. But at the end of the day, you lost. You lost a 3-1 lead. And y'all blaming it, well, at least Paul George is, blaming it all on Doc. Doc didn't make no adjustments. Doc didn't use me right. Doc. Like, Doc did everything wrong. So I'm interested to see what the hell the Clippers are going to be able to do when they didn't make many changes. Once again, I'm talking to Marcus Lamar from the Mark My Words podcast. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and go give Marcus a check over there at the Mark My Word podcast. I am Jeff Lighty Jr. here with the Black Boss channel. We do these style videos every Monday and Friday at noon. So be sure to check us out every Monday and Friday at noon. I post on the Black Boss channel frequently, pretty much every single day. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button because we are on our way out, on your way out. Marcus, thank you once again, brother, for doing this with me.
Appreciate it.
And we